I think, in to be respectful of everybody's time, we'll try to get things started on time each month. So for the folks that are on, this the premise of this was really just to give our teachers and coaches an opportunity to share ideas, maybe even vent a little bit. Each week, it'll be an open conversation. Whoever the conversation lead is will have a couple of key topics to kind of be conversation starters, I would say. But then we really want the conversation just to be open, and for you all to share ideas. I think as the saying goes, I don't know how many folks actually have an original idea. So, we're all stealing from each other to get better. So to kick this series off, and certainly want to thank Andy for, allowing us to give this a go. We hope it'll be good, and we're going to learn from it as we go as well. So, we'll ask for your feedback on how to make these conversations better. But really want it to be very much an open conversation, not have one person kind of hijack the conversation the entire time, but really get folks to be able to share their ideas and ask questions. So again, thanks to Andy, our instruction committee chair, for giving this a go, and he's going to lead our conversation today. But what I'll do is I'll have Matt go over some kind of technical jargon with everybody to make sure that it goes smoothly, and then we'll turn the floor over to Andy. Okay.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, just a couple quick things to go over. If you're not speaking or actively engaged in the discussion, if you can just keep your microphones muted so there isn't any background noise or echoes, that would be wonderful. Videos are optional. I think it probably adds a little bit to the conversation if we can see each other, but if you can't or you're unable to, that's fine too. There's a button on the screen I'd like you all to avoid hitting. It's a little box with an up arrow on it. Please do not click that, as that will share your screen and interrupt the conversation. When you want to jump into the conversation, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and hop in. But if you feel like there's a time where you can't jump in, you can certainly raise your hand using the hand button down at the bottom of your screen, or put a question into the chat and we can prompt the leader. If you do have any technical issues, please put those into the chat and I will do my best to help you through those. Most of the time, the technical issues stem from your own Wi-Fi connection, so there might be only so much I can do. If anyone is dialed in today, I think I saw at least one phone number. Please send me an email at mfrey@pgahq.com. That way we'll make sure you get your PDR credits for today. And we are recording this session, so if you ever need to refer back to it, it'll be up on our YouTube channel as well. With that, I'll go ahead and throw it back over to Jeff, who just raised his hand.
That's how it works, by the way. Just real quick, the plan is for this to go about an hour or so. But if folks want to hang on and continue the conversation, you're certainly welcome to. So it's not necessarily a hard stop if folks want to continue the conversation, or if you want to take it offline, you can do that. But the idea is to have kind of this, controlled amount of time so folks can get on with their day. But if folks want to continue the conversation, they certainly can. So, but other than that, Andy, it's all yours, buddy. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jeff. So I think really this came about from one of the meetings that we had with our instruction committee with the help of Matt and Jeff, and just kind of the idea that we need to get together more often and share ideas. And for me personally, when I was thinking about this, I'm not so interested in the technical, mechanical sharing of ideas, drills and stuff, although I do recognize that's important. For me personally, I sort of, my brain went to like, how do we manage our lives as coaches and teachers? How do we structure our day? How do we balance, our family, and how do we make sure that we're just always excited about teaching and coaching, and we're avoiding that sort of burnout factor. So today, a lot of the bullet points and things that I'd like to bring up for us to just kind of discuss a little bit freely is, how we're doing those things well, because I don't know that we really share that type of information often. at any rate. So hopefully you're willing to share, your personal information, and we can all grow as people, not just coaches today. So the first question that I wanted to ask here was, how do you structure your day, right? So one of the things that I admittedly struggle with is I don't take breaks. So my wife sort of hates it, but I'll come in and there'll be days, if I'm here for 12 hours in the summer, I'm literally teaching 12 hours straight with no breaks, which I do recognize that's probably not a great idea. But what happens is you're trying to fit people into your schedule, and it just becomes difficult to find time to fit people in. And then for me, I feel bad telling them, I can't fit you in. So one of the things that has helped me is that I did switch to online booking. I use Calendly, which helps me because now I can just say, go to the link and book it. And I'm not the bad guy saying I don't have any times. Does anybody else have any ways that they kind of either build breaks into their day or just manage their time a little bit better than what I'm currently doing?
Hey, Andy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Roger Hoover.
Hey, Roger.
I use Acuity Scheduler. I really like it a lot. It's not really expensive. I turned Hershey Country Club onto it. I literally find that if I go too long without a break, it really kind of affects your teaching. So every third or fourth hour, I'll put in an hour, and that allows me to catch up on some stuff that I don't have to do when I go home later, like notes for lessons that I send people.
Mhm.
I just find that's even better. Just Acuity allows you them to book online. You can put it right into your website, and it gives out reminders and all that. I'm sure most people already have that. Yeah, I just find it. I usually send out notes for all my lessons, along with maybe a accompanied video that corresponds to the lesson itself, so they can have that. So I find that helps me, get a little something to eat if I need to, even if it's for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, and then catch up on that stuff that I don't have to do at home.
Yep. That's good, Roger. Thanks. Yeah, I think I need to go in there. I know whatever booking you're using, you can go in there and actually block off certain times. Personally, I need to do a better job, I think, of doing that, because I do end up at the end of the day with some stuff that I need to follow up on. And certainly the last thing I want to do once I go home is do more work-related stuff, because I'm sure we all fall into that trap too, where we're working at work and we're working at home. Anybody else have anything else on that, sort of like structuring of your day and how you build breaks into your day and things of that nature?
I guess, Andy, the other thing too is, how many folks would, do folks actually build out certain parts of their day for certain parts of whatever tasks they have? They start their day by answering emails, and then they fill in, so kind of structure out your day versus, blocking out your day.
Mr. Dunnigan. Oh, you're on mute.
Here we go.
There you go.
Andy, I have the same. I'm not going to call it a problem. I do 9 to 10 straight. I used to do 11 straight lessons. I actually find that if I took a break, then I have to get back up. But I have no problem doing 9 or 10 straight. If I take a break, because I'm pretty much high energy the whole time, so I prefer to go straight through. But I would say that at the end of every lesson, probably actually throughout the lesson, I'm sending people video recaps so I don't have to take that stuff home with me. That said, at home, I get phone calls, I get videos. So there's a lot of stuff to it. I've got to say, if you want to coach competitive golfers, as you know, that's part of the deal. That's just part of the deal. Reading the post-round reports that you know about, all that stuff is just part of the deal, and I accept that. But there's a certain time after which 8 o'clock at night, there's no hope of me answering the phone. and I don't answer the phone during family dinner, which is now just two of us. But that's how I kind of run it.
Got it. Yeah, I think just tool wise, switching to online scheduling has saved me a ton of time on a daily basis, because as Jeff kind of mentioned there, or alluded to, like, now I don't have to spend half an hour before I work responding to emails and texts about booking lessons, or an hour after work responding to emails about times. Also, Coach Now for me has been probably saved me an hour or two a day by doing something similar to what John's talking about, where I'm doing all my recaps and summaries while people are there, so I don't need to do it after the fact. Go ahead, Chip.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, Andy?
Yep.
Okay, great. Question for the group, and I'm hoping we can speak freely on this because, I mean, obviously there's people like me in the room that talk about it, but I'm currently, the website thing, back to your earlier question, I usually block off 11 o'clock and 3 o'clock in my day. This time of year, I don't have to worry about it as much because I'm not doing 7, 8, 9. I'm doing more like 3, 4, 5, 6 at the most. It's just not quite as busy. But in the April through August timeframe, that's what I do. But I was curious. I'm currently using Thrive Sports for my website, and they've done a nice job, and it has saved me a ton of time. However, it does have an expense that comes with it. I've been to a bunch of presentations on PGA Coach, but I've never actually used it. Is there anyone in the room using it right now? And maybe someone would say, here's why I'm not using it, or here's why I am using it. Because at the end of the day, it's free. They sell it, when you go into the Will Robbins talking about it, they sell it as a pretty good product. But I was curious if anyone in this room right now is using it and what their thoughts on it were.
Go ahead, Cole.
Hey Chip. So I use it kind of. I did make a profile on that and I did put it up. The only reason why I haven't used a scheduler is because I had purchased a scheduler before I found out about PGA Coach. But what I will say is if you have a scheduler already, you can sign up and do the PGA Coach option, and then you can direct them to whatever scheduler you have. So I've gotten a lot of leads from it. I've gotten multiple leads where it turned into regular students because of PGA Coach. It's a great free marketing tool that they provide us. And I don't see any issues with their scheduler as well. If that's just a good option in my opinion, and it's free, which is even better.
Yes, Jeffrey.
Hey, Cole, just as a follow-up, what would you say are the two best things and the two worst things about PGA Coach?
So the two, probably the two best things I would say, well, the biggest best thing I would put it is it's free marketing that when someone Googles local PGA Coach, they've done a great job with their SEO marketing and paid for marketing that if you're in that local geosphere, your profile gets put up on the top of that Google search. So if you're in Malvern, PA or Philly or wherever you are, and they search golf coach, the PGA Coach website comes up first because they've done a good job with their SEO, with everything about marketing to make sure it's up on first. So because of that, you get a lot of leads just from people searching local coaches. And the other piece is you can build your own profile with all your information on it, what you focus on. You can show where you are. You can provide contact information. If you use their booking site, then you can they'll just directly book on the PGA site. So that's a big positive. I would say the negative, you kind of forget about it. So you don't really manage it. So you don't really do anything with it. And because of that, items can become stale. And so if you've moved or if you've gone somewhere else and you're not paying attention, you may get leads for people looking for you at one course when you've already gone to another course. So I would say that's probably a negative, is because it's such an easy setup. you don't really do anything with it once it's set up.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks, bud.
Yep.
Rebecca Dangler, all you. Oh, you're on mute. I can't hear you. There
All right,
you go.
my apologies.
No, all good.
I have bounced back and forth with various scheduling sites over the last 20 plus years, and I keep coming back to Smarter Lessons because it's an independent site. It's not like Thrive where they're showing you a whole bunch of other teachers as well, and it's just pretty simple.
Smarter Lessons. Okay. I think it's always good for us to kind of revisit these things, maybe on an annual basis and just see, because really I think this part of the conversation has more to do with how are we managing our time and making sure that we're getting the most out of our time. Because if we're teaching, during our busy season, like every hour kind of really adds up. So if it's something that's taking you an hour every day to accomplish, and you can save that hour and do something a little more productive, or literally just use it as a rejuvenation type period, I think it makes sense. Does anybody else have anything on that sort of, how you're managing your day and, maybe online booking? All right. The next one that I wanted to talk about is group sessions. So, kind of piggybacking on the last topic, the idea that maybe bringing out people individually, obviously if we have 10 individual lessons in a day, that's 10 people. Whereas if we can start putting some of these people in groups and getting them to come out at the same time, not only would we be able to manage that a little bit better time-wise, but it might be a little bit more lucrative for us in terms of the monetary intake. So does anybody want to share anything that they've sort of done recently in terms of that type of program, group sessions, on-course sessions, supervised practice type stuff? I can say this year is the first year I've actually had any type of success doing that, aside from just one-off clinics here and there. I did a group coaching program in the spring with 4 people where we split our time every week. We'd go 90-minute range session and then a 2-hour on-course session. And we did that for about 3 months. And I filled it up pretty quickly, and everybody had fun and got significantly better. And I'm definitely going to attempt to do more of those things in the future. But just, does anybody else have anything they'd like to talk about regarding that? Go ahead, Rebecca. Looks like you're back on.
Yeah, I have a ladies practice session I do twice a week, Tuesdays at 11 and Thursdays at 1. And it's up to 6 women. And it's just been a blast. I just take them through various activities and they love it. And then I do have a lunchtime coach, just 4 people, and I'm just there. I provide the balls and I let them ask me any questions. And it's amazing. A lot of times they might not have a lot of questions. So
can you talk more about like what the cost is for them to sign up for one of these things, and whether, if it's something that goes on for weeks, do they need to sign up for the entirety of the program, or is it just sort of a weekly basis, or how do you structure that?
yeah, it's all each class is individual, so they sign up individually. It's $25 for the hour. So if the women's practice session, I'm getting $150 for the hour. The lunchtime coach is $25. And I've had more than one person comment that I should charge more for that. But these are a lot of my hardcore regular players and women, so it's a nice add-on.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess you could structure it a few different ways. You could structure it as a benefit to some of the people that you already teach. If it is in the busy season and you're having a hard time fitting all these people in, if you can get everybody to come out for that, even if you're charging $25 and maybe not charging as much as you could, it's a nice benefit for your players, and you're still probably getting close to what you'd normally get in terms of your hourly rate.
And I think you have to realize, especially for the women and for some of the guys, They do not want a one-on-one lesson. It's actually stressful to them. And if they're with a couple other people, all the attention is not on them. And I think the more we realize that, the more we can help people at different levels versus the hardcore one-on-one lessons.
Does anybody else have any experience with that, or anybody thinking about structuring a program like that? Chip kind of mentioned Will Robbins, and obviously a lot of the stuff he does in terms of group coaching has been really successful. Anybody else? Yeah. I'm not sure who that was. I can only see a phone number on there.
I think that's still Roger Hoover, if I'm not mistaken.
Roger that, Jeff.
Yes, I'm here. I just don't. I kept my
Ah,
the audio on. I do a group.
if not, we can
I do a
we
group.
can certainly
I do a. Go ahead.
go ahead, Roger.
I do a group for the junior, like a junior league that I have, where I do 5 to 6 instruction, and I'm an assistant that does short game while I'm doing full swing, and then we go out on the course with them. That's 5 to 6 instruction, and then they play until dark, and I find that that's been very successful. Give the money, and the course gets money. I'm obviously pay them to get the kids on the course. They go out at 6 o'clock and play till dark. And the course gets money off of that too. I have to pay them to get them on the course.
Sounds like a good deal. Mr.
It's
Dunnigan.
hard to get on the course. Really hard to get on the course.
For sure, yeah, especially at peak times. No doubt.
That's why I have to do it at 6 o'clock at night.
Thanks, Roger.
We do a hot chicks class, which is for my beginner ladies, and they seem to like that a lot. I run it all year long on Friday mornings, and we might have, unfortunately, one show up, but we have a deal that I will, and I actually call it, okay, I'm whacking it up for the normally hourly rate, right? Or if there's more show up, that if one person shows up, they know that they'll be charged for a private lesson. They've been very cool about that. It's been actually very successful, but it ebbs and flows with the time of the year. Then we have not every week, but for most of the season, it'll end this week, juniors on Sundays or Wednesdays and Sundays. And in that one, they pay for, so to speak, the semester. Maybe it's an 8-week program or a 6-week program, and they pay in advance for that, just like soccer class or hockey class. If you miss a class, sorry. And that's one of the things that has, but I think you can set the table for that just by making it clear. Look, in every sport in the world, if you don't come to class, you miss the class. So we have to have that. That's just got to be the way that it is. And so we'll say no when necessary. And then if there's not enough kids in the class, I give that to our assistant, Darren, so he can add to his income. But it's priced fairly, but it's also priced where I'm bettering my normal hourly rate.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I'm going to attempt to do more of these in the future. My hesitancy is in those scenarios where you're sort of trying to figure out, how you can make a little bit more than your normal hourly rate. But if you only have X number of people sign up, you actually end up making less. So I definitely think I'm going to attempt to do this more, just again, in the effort to maybe fit some more people in. And as I mentioned, the one that I did this year was really successful. It's really nice to go on the golf course and watch these people play golf. If you don't do that currently, I would really recommend it. Just so much different than hitting golf balls on the range. Does anybody else have anything on that?
I needed to add one thing to that, to your point. I started doing 3 people playing lessons where I have 3 people and they all pay the normal hourly rate. We go out for 2 hours, and it may be on-course scrimmage practice where the coach sets the rules.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it is tournament golf. So I see how they handle it. And then we have a little, as we're walking around, a little discussion on what they're thinking. So I do that. It has been difficult to do that, except during summer. Summer at Applebrook, it's not quite so busy, but every other time, spring and fall, as busy as could be.
Yep. So we'll move on to the next one. I have some other bullet points here, but I'm curious to hear, what you guys have at your current facility. So here, I do have the ability to teach non-members. If you're at a private club, I'm just curious to whether or not you're able to do that. And the club retains 10% of my member lessons, and non-members, it retains 15%. I also have in my contract basically a bonus for bringing in new members. So it's not a huge amount. However, it is beneficial for the club. And thankfully, they're really good to me, and they do recognize that we've gained some members through some of the programming that I run and some of the instruction that I give. So does anybody else have anything that they are comfortable sharing on that? I'm comfortable sharing pretty much anything. I really don't care. So my deal, again, is 10% for member lessons, 15% non-members, and then a small bonus. Yeah, go ahead, Chip.
Yeah, very similar to yours. I'm allowed to teach, coach whoever, whenever. I pay 10% across the board, whether it's member or non-member, but they do ask me to charge more for a non-member. So I charge an additional $40 for a non-member lesson than I do for a member lesson. And I charge a little less for juniors, students, college and high school kids. But yeah, there's really no restrictions on how I do it up here. It's just straight 10%.
Yeah, mine's really similar. Charge more for non-members, less for juniors. Actually, in an effort to sort of like maybe just spread out my schedule a little bit and be a little bit less busy all the time, I raised my rates a couple times over the last few years with the intent of thinning it out, and it doesn't seem to have that effect. I don't know if anybody else has had that thing. I was kind of hoping that it would deflect some of these students maybe onto some of the other people here that teach, and that just hasn't been the case. All right, Matt, what do you got?
So I am in a situation where I am not allowed to teach non-members unless they are directly referred to me by a member. As busy as my schedule is with our membership, I don't really have much time to do that to begin with. So those I tend to deflect to some of the other guys on staff, but typically I am 100% member only. Having said that too, I'm in a very fortunate situation. The club does not take a percentage of my lessons. I am able to keep 100% of that, which is probably rare these days, but certainly a nice perk there.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think one of the things, I probably should have mentioned this as well, is that they're really good at capital improvements. So they'll take some of the income that they generate from the lessons that I give in that 10 or 15%. And I can kind of go to the board at the end of the year and say, look, we need this, like we need this launch monitor, or we need, whatever. And they're really good about that. So some of the money that they take, out of those sessions actually goes back into the club. So yeah, Jeff, that's a good question. So I am an employee of the club. I get paid a salary in addition to making whatever I make on lessons. I don't know what the situation is for anybody, or if anybody else wants to share the prior topic, certainly have at it. But I'm an employee. Anybody else? Seems like almost everybody. Same. So one of the other questions that I had written down here to talk about was online sessions. So I haven't done much in terms of providing online instruction. I think I'm rationalizing it in my brain and just telling people that I prefer meeting with them in person. I don't know if it's because I'm just reluctant to do online stuff at the moment, and maybe I'm just lying to myself, but I do like the personal interaction with people in front of me, and I haven't dipped into that world yet. I know there's people out there who have, essentially transitioned to an almost exclusive online presence. I don't know that that would ever work for me, but has anybody had any experience and done a lot of volume in that realm? Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't feel right to me. It just something artificial about it where I kind of like having them here. I've actually had some people come out who were former students with somebody, and that person has transitioned to basically completely online. And so now they can't go to him or her because they don't teach in person anymore. So yeah, go ahead, Cole.
So I have done some online booking. I mean, not online booking, online lessons. What I have found is effective if you do that is one, I've only done it with students that I currently teach that can't come out for an in-person lesson. Over the last 2 seasons, I've traveled for the winter, so I haven't been able to teach some of my regulars as a result. So I've had to do some online lessons to keep in touch. And when I do that, a couple things that I've done to make sure it's effective is one, I keep the lesson information very simple, and I make sure I'm in an area that I can demonstrate fully what I want them to be doing.
Right.
And then what I also do is I make sure that they send me film of them swinging and doing whatever drill I have them doing, or whatever practice regimen. I make sure they send me that the next day or in the next couple of days, so I can make sure that whatever we talked about actually settled in and made sense. And if I have to, I'll do a follow-up that I offer as a part of the lesson. So I don't charge extra for a follow-up if, because of we're in camera, there was something that made a mistake. So I'll do like a 10-minute or 15-minute follow-up that if they need it only, like it won't just be like oh, we're going to do one. If, hey, you're not doing this correctly, just let's spend 10, 15 minutes reviewing it, make sure you're on the right path and keep going. But I haven't had any experience doing it with new people. I've
Right.
only done it with people I teach regularly.
Got it. So you kind of talked about this too, like holding students accountable, right? So this is going to be a long-winded question that I ask here. So one of the things that I struggle with for sure, and it's really interesting because I talk to players about it all the time, about their identity as a person being the score that they shoot, right? Like we've talked about this. We know it's a real thing, especially with junior competitive golfers. But I think sometimes for us, maybe I shouldn't speak for the group. Like I fall into that trap too, where, I feel bad when one of my players plays poorly, right? And sometimes I feel like I let that affect my mental, emotional state. And I was sort of reflecting about this yesterday. It's like, if I'm telling people that they can't control their score, right? It's not totally controllable, but I'm getting upset when somebody I teach shoots a score. Certainly I have an even less effect on their score than they do. So I think for me, I sit back and I'm like, I can only help this person if they want to be helped. I can only help this person if they're putting in the time, doing the things I'm asking them to do. So this was the long-winded version of asking, like, what are we doing with people in between sessions to make sure that they're actually doing what we would like them to do? So my the tool that I use every day is Coach Now. And even though people are paying me to come out here and improve, and I'm telling them, look, the people that improve the most are the ones who are posting stuff all the time, right? Like, and I try to say, look, anytime you do anything golf related, just post something on Coach Now, whether it's a note, a video, And admittedly, I probably get 10% of the people to actually use it regularly, and they're always the people that improve the most. So is there anything that anybody's had maybe more than a 10% success rate in terms of holding people accountable to actually do the things that you want them to do?
If anybody figures out the method for that, bottle it and sell it for whatever you want. Getting the folks to do, just fill out the damn post-round report. Send me the text on whether you played the game or what you shot. For goodness sakes, the compliance with that is offensively poor.
Yeah. I mean, does anybody else experience the sort of roller coaster of emotions that I experience when my players play well or play poorly? Or is that just me? Starting to feel a little strange. Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's like it makes no sense when I look at it like I would normally look at it for a player. If I'm telling them you don't have control over it, again, I have less control than they do. Joe, you're on.
Yeah, Andy, I feel the pain when a student goes out there and they've prepared for an event and they haven't played well. So where I go with it with the student is, and what was your process? I always have them focus on their process and grade themselves on their process that we've created for them to hit the shots and play the game, and kind of get them into that. Did I perform my process well? Well, yes. But if I perform my process well, then maybe my skills need to improve a little bit more, and we go and work there. But having them do that and just trying to keep them within their process when they're working, and that kind of holds me accountable too, to make sure that they are doing the process, doing the right things during the process to hit their shots. And yeah, you feel bad when they go out there and they lose a match when they prepared so hard for it. But that's the only thing that I think I can go back to them with, to say that we've done our job. Your score sometimes doesn't reflect what you've done. So if you've done your job out there, then you can be happy with what you've done and just try to keep on improving your skills.
Yeah, that's a great answer. JD, I think you do a really good job of that in terms of defining, expectations and how the game is not linear and we're not always going to play well. And there's going to be these ebbs and flows. I think, again, like when we're teaching people and we're forming a relationship with them, I think it helps us weather those poor periods of time, right? Like if we can build trust and they know, look, I know that I can count on this. Even when I'm playing poorly, I know that this person cares about me as an individual and as a golfer, and you can work through those difficulties. I think those are the students that you end up keeping for a lifetime, as opposed to those people who maybe they have that poor performance and instead of can we improve? What can I do better? I think those people tend to jump ship really early, and they just go back and forth from one coach to the next. So I'm not so sure we want those people anyway. Rebecca.
I just keep in mind that there's no one path for all these players. I'll never forget, I think it was Kathy Johnson Forbes was working with, I think it was Tom Patry, and he had her taking all these stats. Now, if you know Kathy, she is not a very academic person, and she had her best years. I think she worked 2 seasons with him, but she was miserable. She didn't want to keep all the stats. So I think, you just got to work with every individual player and find what works for them.
Yeah, good point. JD.
So although we play golf for score, I get that. The score matters. And I think that I do spend an awful lot of time trying to get people's head wrapped around the things that they can take care of, the process, their attitude or attitude, if you prefer, their the way that they bring their attention, decision making. We concentrate on all those things. And my daughter, when she started, I think freshman year, she said one of the smartest things I've ever heard: Dad, I'm just going to use tournaments to tell me what to practice. What happens is you're supposed to be doing all this preparation, and you could say that perhaps the outcome had something to do with your skills. The outcome you got may have had something to do with your control over your mental state, your attention during the swing. Did you play golf to avoid mistakes, or did you just give it? Let's see. I know what I would say, but did you just give it your best effort? There we go. That's better. Did you give it your best effort and go, hey, look at the rest is out of my hands? Because it is. I was on the golf course, and I almost did put on my social media that I despise the significant role that luck plays in tournament outcomes. I just hate it. I picked golf because I thought it was not so lucky. And then I watched one young lady hit 6 balls into the trees toward out of bounds. Every ball bounced back in. I watched my kid hit one tree and it bounced straight out of bounds. I'm like, God, that's not how this is going to work. But other than that, I just want to see the effort, right? And it's not. I have a new book coming, and it's like I don't want to see max effort. That's for the NFL lineman, right? I want max effort out of that dude. I want best effort, which is setting the expectations properly. In fact, I would say that if you're going to expect anything, expect the worst, but hope for the best. Everybody's out there expecting their A game to show up when it almost never shows up. But we think that our A game is our average game. So that trying to get people, and I will tell you, I spend at least as much, if not quite a bit more time on the mental approach to playing than I do the golf swing. I think the golf swing is the easy part of this.
I would not argue with you there. That's a good question, Jeffrey Surratt. I'm trying to think if I've ever had to fire a student. I remember James Seekman when he came to talk to our section a few years back, starting off his portion of the educational event saying, I fire 5 students every year. And basically said, look, I've developed a reputation for helping people play better. And, my reputation is on the line when I'm teaching somebody. And if they say, hey, I'm working with James Seekman, and they go out and put up an 89 in a competitive tournament, that doesn't reflect well on him. So he made the statement, basically, I've got a lot of assistants that need experience teaching the game of golf. Yeah, it can be a difficult situation. I think we've all been there where I think it probably starts with frustration on both ends, right? Like maybe your message just isn't getting through to them, and they're not putting in the time, which you're getting frustrated that they're not putting the time in. They're getting frustrated because you feel like you're not helping them. And yeah, I think in that scenario, it makes sense to part ways. It certainly happens all the time in professional golf as well. So yeah, there's been definitely situations where I don't know that I've ever said to the student, you're fired. It's maybe more along the lines of, I'm not sure what I can do to help you. And sometimes it's in those moments of desperation during a lesson where you just look at them and they're getting angry and you're getting frustrated, and it doesn't work out. Yeah, that's right. Good one, Jeff. One of the other things that I just wanted to talk about briefly was in terms of days off. So I never work on Sundays. I do things with my family on Sundays, and we go to church and things of that manner. And then we're closed on Tuesdays. So even during the busy season, I work 5 days a week. With that being said, the 5 days a week that I work during the season are long days. But during the off season, which I would consider probably here maybe October-ish through February or March, I'm trying to only work 4 days a week. Sometimes I only work 3 days a week and just try to fit all those people into those time frames. We've started to have 2 indoor simulators during those times of years. So I'm hoping that it doesn't make me more busy, but it will be nice to be able to use them. Currently, we have a setup where we do have bays that we hit out into the range, but if it's 15 degrees outside and you're 3 feet from the opening of the garage door, it's still pretty cold where you're hitting. So does anybody else have maybe a unique type structure where they work, similar to what, some other professions where maybe you work 4 days in a row and then you have 3 days off? Or does anybody have anything that might be different than the normal situation that I currently am sort of in? Negative. Is there anything else? I have a couple other things on here, but before I dive into that, is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up that would be of a similar topic to what we've discussed prior in terms of like managing time and maybe just compensation type stuff? Does anybody have anything that they want to bring up for the group? Yeah, Andrew.
I was curious, at the end of, a lot of people discussed sending recaps at the end of lessons. And I was just curious as to how people were doing that. I tend to sit down like the last 5-10 minutes and just kind of text them notes and maybe send them like a screenshot of their video. I used to use this app Huddle that would send like a whole video to them, and that is non-existent anymore. So I was just wondering if anybody had something that they were sending their recaps with.
Yeah, so I'll just interject quickly. I use Coach Now. I do all my filming inside of Coach Now. I can post notes. I try to get people to communicate solely via Coach Now so I don't get emails, texts. And pretty much at the end of each session, at the very least, I have a massive whiteboard in the room that I teach in that I'll take notes on during sessions. At the very least, I'll recap it with a picture of that board. But if I'm really mindful of the time, I'll have them give me like a little summary at the end of each session and video it. That way I don't need to do anything afterwards. I can just move right on to the next person. Matt.
So similar to Andy, I have some people, they don't want a video recap. They just want a quick text message or email. It's kind of tailoring to the student like we do a lot, but I use V1 for all my video stuff. It's easy to organize by the student, send voiceovers. I teach with the pressure mat a lot, so being able to share that data with them as an overlay with the video can be extremely beneficial as well. But I have a fairly older membership, and a lot of them don't like the having to sit there and watch a 3-minute video. They just want 3 quick swing thoughts and a text message that they can save in their phone. And if that's what's best for them, I'll do that. A lot of times I'll still send them a video as well, just because I think they'll find that it's more beneficial than they might realize. But it's really just kind of whatever meets the student.
Chip.
Yeah, a different topic, but I was just curious for some of the feedback from the group. What has been everyone's experience with raising of rates of their lessons, and has that been something that you have seen fewer lessons being taken? Or I've talked to some and they say, "Hey, I raise my rates every couple of years, and it's never put a hit." I find that difficult to believe, but I was just curious what everyone else's thoughts were.
So Chip, I'll give you my 30-second answer to that question. I've raised my rates, I think, twice over the last 4 years, and I've actually never seen any type of decrease in the volume. I was kind of hoping that I would, honestly, but I've never actually seen that. And yeah, that's my experience. I've raised it twice. I think my non-member went from 150 to now it's 200, and I still teach just as many non-members as I did prior. JD.
Same experience. This summer I raised my non-member rate in the middle of the season, which
unheard of.
That's just not cool.
That's like scoring 70 points against the Broncos.
But they keep showing up. And I think that number one, I think that we have to be really aware of the fact that there is in the world, whether it's justified or not, a price/quality comparison, if there is a relationship in the marketplace. That said, I have never had the price increase do anything other than make me busier. That goes with another section that I think that our pros could really use. There's an idea of scarcity, right? So you have this, well, maybe we have our position status wise in golf. I don't care about that very much. But when your book is very full, people recognize that, right? This girl must be doing something good like Becky Dengler. I'm going to be like her when I grow up, but taller. You know, where you, it's obvious the person has the goods. Now you raise the price up, and I have only ever gotten busier, although I am conscious, and this is my problem with life. I'm conscious that as a kid growing up, I could never afford to take a lesson from me, which I will say that does bother me a ton. But the other side of this is I support my family teaching golf, right? So it's a little bit of a dilemma there.
I struggle with that occasionally as well. Some kids who I'd really like to teach, who just can't afford to come out here. And there are people that are charging much less that I'm sure are doing a really good job. Just for me personally, because of the fact that my time is valuable to me, because I do have a family that I like spending time with. I was hoping that raising my rate would thin it out, and it's never done that. There's another example that I want to use too. I worked at Galloway National when I was about 20, which living in the Atlantic City area when you're around 20 or 21 years old is not a great idea. Trust me. Anyway, our owner, Vernon Hill, who I think still owns Galloway National, owned Commerce Bank at the time. And my boss, Mike Killian, sat down at the end of every year and talked to Mr. Hill about, you know, how membership was going and things of that nature. And the one year we didn't have a particularly good year at gaining new members. So Mr. Hill didn't even know what we were charging. And he said, you know, what are we charging? What's our initiation fee? And Mike's like, it's 40,000. And Mr. Hill says, why don't we raise it to 80? And Mike's like, well, we didn't get many at 40. And he's like, let's raise it. He's like, it's perception. You know, if we're charging 80,000, first of all, we're only going to have to get one new member as opposed to two at 40,000 to make the same amount. And he's like, it's just perception. If you give some of these people the choice between paying the least and the most, some people are probably always going to pick the least and some will always pick the most. So yeah, Rebecca.
Hey, John, if you ever need your nonprofit fix, I have a couple really good first tee kids that would love to visit you.
I'm in.
All right, Matt.
So we are kind of on the lower end of the rates, and we did raise it last year.
That's because you're in Amish country.
I know we don't wear shoes out here, so we don't need the higher amounts. But I saw about myself a 20% increase in volume after raising rates. Now, I'm in a weird situation where we do not control the rates. They are set by the board. So I can't just sit there and say, all right, I'm going to charge 150 going forward. So that was kind of a long time coming type of situation. I would be curious to hear, though, how many people have control over their rates, how many have to be approved, or how many are dictated by the board, because I think we're probably in the minority here in that type of situation. But I'd be curious to hear what other people's thoughts are there.
Yeah, one of the things that really I value about my position here at Ledrock is the fact that they pretty much allow me to do whatever I feel is right. So I've always had complete control over my schedule, the programs that I run, what I charge, things of that nature. It's one of the things that has, you know, been nice about being employed here. But I don't know. Does anybody else? Is anybody else in a similar situation to Matt, or maybe they don't have control over their rate?
I have control over non-members. The club has asked for a set rate, but I charge the non-members market rate, I guess.
Yeah. It looks like we got about 5 minutes left. As Jeff mentioned, we can certainly stay on and talk more if anybody wants to stay on longer. But does anybody have anything else that they want to talk about? Again, like for me, of course, I want to learn more information about how to help people swing the golf club better. Like that's valuable, and I think we all need to do a certain amount, I would say on a daily basis to learn every day on what we can do better in terms of that. But I think sometimes the things that we're talking about today get kind of pushed under the rug, and we don't spend as much time learning how to time manage better and use the tools that are accessible to us to help us have a better quality of life, essentially, and not just teach around the clock and get burned out. Yeah, Chip.
Yeah, this one obviously is going to take more than 5 minutes, but maybe you could put it on your notes for one of our future calls. But before I get into that, thank you for everyone who was involved in putting this together. I think it's a great idea. I know I'm part of JD's Skilled Coaching Alliance, and I look forward to those meetings all the time. I've learned a tremendous amount from them, and just made, it's been a really good thing for me. And I could see this growing into something like that. But I would be curious to hear, and I'd almost be curious maybe at the next call or at a call in the future for Andy to say, everybody on this call has to answer this question. What are you going to do over the next 4 or 5 months to be a better teacher in 2024? I'm always curious to hear how people. I know John, a very good friend of mine, and I'm always amazed at the amount of energy and time he puts into education and going to seminars and meeting people and going out and meeting Dr. Wu and stuff like that, and learning about learning, not just learning about the golf swing. And I think that's fascinating. So I would love to, going forward, maybe just have a topic where, as we are in the off season, we're slowing down a little bit. What are we going to do to be better next year? And I'd love to hear what some other people's thoughts are on that. And consider yourself warned. You might have to answer that question if Andy so chooses.
No, I think that's a good one, for sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of goals. Like, I don't really set goals for myself, and that's just me personally. Like, I don't know. I've never been one to do that. I try to look at it like at the end of the day, I'm just trying to do everything I can that day, go to bed feeling comfortable with what I did that day. And if I can control like the moments in those times, but certainly I'm trying to learn everything I can during that day. That's a good question, I think, for now. You could literally spend an hour talking about that one, Chip. Probably more than that. Does anybody else have anything that they want to discuss prior to us ending the session? I thought this was great. I mean, again, I was hoping that this would be a more casual type, just people sharing personal experiences and not, for lack of a better word, not some of the like BS, like, I helped this person fix this slice. Like, this was more sort of like the individual person type human skill stuff, as opposed to literal technical mechanical stuff. Is there anything else that we could do during these calls? Like, obviously this is the first one that we've done, but any suggestions for what we could do in the future to maybe improve upon it?
I would say that, if when you send out the announcement, Matthew, you might say, okay, hey, listen, today's subject is actually gonna be faults and fixes. I know I'm seeing that at least 1, 2, 3. There's more of us that have something like that. Chip, you do too. Where we could, if necessary. I'm 100% behind helping share what I've learned about fixing whatever part of golf swings. And we could do that, but maybe put that out there. I think that'd be fine. That way the folks who are coming forward that specifically can jump in there. And I think the way that we did this, with everybody has a chance, if they wish, to share, and if they want to just listen, is very cool. So I thank you for that. Putting's a sissy sport. I wrote a whole book on putting, by the way.
Hey, this is a safe space. People can request whatever they want to hear about.
Yeah, I think
We're not
Andy,
going to allow you to be a bully on here, JD.
that's right. It's a safe space, John.
Cyberbully.
Yeah, I think, for us going forward, we certainly want everyone's feedback on, what you thought of today, what you think we could, get better. And as we said, this is going to be, this was our first, and we certainly don't want folks to jump ship because you didn't feel like it was exactly what you were looking for. So we're looking for your feedback. That's the only way we're going to get better. So, if you all could, shoot, myself or Matt, a note on what you thought about today and ways you think we can make it better. And hopefully, next month we'll make it better. And then the month after that, we'll make that better. So I do kind of like John's suggestion of, putting, publicizing the topics as the event gets closer. So, those folks that might be interested in that would jump in. But, I think this was a great one to start with. And Andy, great job today, pal.
Thanks. I think we should always, like, this is just my opinion. I think we should always save at least 10 or 15 minutes to just talk about whatever. Because if we're saying that this is like a space where we can all talk, and maybe sometimes, I think you mentioned earlier, Jeff, about just like venting, sort of, like, we want to make sure that we're still allowing people to do that stuff at the end, because, truthfully, if you're teaching 10, 12 hours a day and you get home and you talk to your spouse or a girlfriend or whatever, you probably don't have a lot of time to talk about this stuff. So I think we should always at least leave a little bit of time. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think, like at that 9:15 mark, we should pretty much wrap up, whatever discussion topics we had, and then just let folks, have a kind of an open forum situation.
Like it. Cool. Good stuff. Happy fall. The sun's back out.
If it was up to Matt, everybody would call it autumn, by the way, because he's literal. He's good that way.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I could do that.
Let's get it straight, right?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine with me.
Well, thanks everyone. We certainly appreciate your time, and again, shoot us any thoughts you might have on how we can make this.
Sounds good.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody have a great day.
Happy autumn.